Hello, and welcome to our first lesson on Carcassi's Caprice in D minor. We'll use this charming little piece to help develop our right-hand arpeggio technique and develop our left-hand barring technique. Today we're going to work on the first two measures, and we'll get a chance to discuss 8 different concepts that we'll check for our understanding at the end. So let's dig right in. At the start of any piece, it's good to kind of take inventory, of course, to our key signature and our time signature. So if we take a look at that, we have one flat and it's B flat. So we need to have some kind of groundwork understanding of where we're going to locate these B flats. So just to start, we're going to find B flat on the 3rd fret on the 3rd string, and we're also going to find it on the 5th string on the 1st fret. Okay, hold that in your brain for a little bit. Now, our time signature is 4/4, which is great. Common time, I think we can work with that. And we have 16th note subdivision. Initially, we're going to set our metronome to every 16th note getting a click, so we're not going to think too hard about it right at this very first lesson. So, when we're looking at a piece of music for the first time, it's kind of good to kind of distill its essence a little bit. And if we look at the first 2 beats, what we end up finding is just the notes D, A, D, and F. And if we don't know that already, this spells out a D minor chord. So let's take a moment to kind of set that up. So again, we have open D on the 4th string, A on the 2nd fret, D on the 3rd fret, and F. I'm using my 2nd finger, my 4th finger, and my 1st finger. So take a moment to get yourself set up, and we'll set a metronome. And we're just going to play 1 every 4 clicks. Now before I do that, it's always good to think of this thing kind of as like a diving board. So one of our main concepts for this lesson is going to be the concept of follow through. So we want to make sure that we're following through from these big knuckles. So kind of imagine you're displacing the string like a swimmer at a diving board. And we kind of just give up the resistance and follow through into our palm. Okay. So take a moment if you're not set up already. A, D, and F. Ready? Let's play a couple with P, I, M, and A on the first 4 strings. We'll do 1 every 4 counts. Ready, go. Think about the diving board. Can you hear that 1st string? Listen for the 2nd string. Okay, let's add our next chord to it. I won't use this initial lesson to discuss too much music theory, but our next chord is going to be a diminished chord. So this is another kind of cool concept. So we introduced, firstly, this D minor. So we have this minor seniority, which maybe said simply kind of sounds sad. And of course we contrast that with major. Again, we'll leave it for another time. And for right now, we have this diminished chord. So let's talk about this. So we finally get our B flat that we were warned about in the beginning. So we have B flat with our 3rd finger. C sharp we weren't warned about, but we're going to live to see another day. So 2nd fret, and then pinky is going to be on G on the 3rd fret, 1st string. Try that chord out on your own. And then now we're going to see if we can pair these together. So first, I want to make sure that we kind of spell some things out because they're going to keep repeating in your practice. So on a technical side, what we're doing right now is we're looking at the first measure, and we realize that the first 2 beats, or the first 8 16th notes, spell out 1 chord, and then the next 8 16th notes, or beats 3 and 4, spell out a different chord. So what we're calling this is a blocked chord technique. So when you're learning a new piece of music, it's good to kind of block the chords, spell out the harmony, and be able to just make the changes like that. Very much like a jazz musician might think of preparing a piece. So let's waste no time. We're going to do D minor followed by this diminished chord. Okay, and again, we'll use the metronome to help us make the chord switch. We're going to give ourselves 4 counts. Ready? And Start thinking about your next chord shape. Start thinking of where you came from. Last one. Okay, that might be enough initially. You might need to pause the video for a little bit and really get acquainted with those chords. A couple of techniques that are helpful when you're learning new chords for the first time is just to practice physically getting there. You know, bringing your arm to the shape. You can be aware of what finger gets there first. It may be experiment. For me, in this situation of D minor, my first finger kind of gets there and then my middle and pinky fall down. And then when you practice the diminished chord, kind of seems like my pinky gets there first and my 2 and 3 drop at the same time. Okay, so let's continue on a little bit. If we take a look at measure 2 now, we notice that it starts just the same way as measure 1 did. So the first 2 beats, or the first 8 16th notes, spell out another D minor chord. So I know you know that, so we're gonna wait a moment to put it all together. So we're gonna do D minor, the diminished chord, and back to D minor in just a moment. But let's take a moment to look at beats 3 and 4 of measure 2. So we get this new pattern with a repeating D up top. So we have this little bass line that goes D, E, F, D, and then we keep D up top on the second string. I'm going to block these just like I did the previous measures. So let's try that. So instead of separating them, we're going to play the low bass note and the high note at the same time. Just stay with me for a little bit. I think the concept will make sense. Okay, so we're going to take a look at just our bass line for a moment. So we have D, E, F, D. So open, 2nd fret, 3rd fret, open. Clarify that again. D, E, F, D. Okay, now we're going to put our pinky back on, and let's put our middle finger on the 2nd string, or M, and then we're going to block P and M at the same time. Okay, now we're going to play 2 Ds, E and D, F and D, D and D, just like that. I'll do it again and I'll get a metronome on with you. Ready, go. That's a little bit quicker than our last one, so let's try it again so you can prepare yourself. Ready, go. Cool, same thing. Ready, go. Okay. Now, here's going to be the big moment of truth. We're going to play the first 2 measures, playing a D minor chord for 4 clicks, this diminished chord for 4 clicks, back to D minor for 4 clicks, and then we're going to play 4 beats of that moving bass line with the top note. Okay? Starting with D minor, I'll give you a count before we start. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Think where you're going. Okay, we're going to do that again and probably again and probably again in this video. But let's kind of reinforce another concept, which is follow through. Again, thinking that all these things are coming from the big knuckles. It's really helpful that when we block chords, not only are we understanding the left hand and the chord changes better, we're also getting a chance for our right hand to encourage all the fingers to come through. We don't want to have some movement from the big knuckle and some movement from the middle ones going upwards, which often happens a lot. So keeping that in mind, keep thinking of that big follow through. keep thinking of the diving board, and we're going to do just that much again, and then we'll introduce some arpeggios. Okay, 1, 2, ready, go. One more time. 1, 2, ready, go. Okay, cool. So hopefully that feels comfortable. Again, at any point you can stop the tape and practice a couple times. So we've talked about follow through. We've talked about this D minor chord and this diminished chord. I'm going to add one little element to that just to kind of put in your brain and plant a seed here, and then we'll move on to arpeggios. So something that's kind of neat about this piece and kind of, very stylistic of this Carcassi guy is this idea of pedal bass. So what this means is we're going to have a bass note that stays the same, and the chord above it, or the harmony above it, changes. So for this note, the D doesn't actually belong to the chord above, but it's just pedaling through, and we're almost thinking of like an organ pedal being depressed, or a piano sustaining pedal sustaining that note. So it's that kind of idea. And that's going to come, it's going to be a feature that we've seen again in a lot of Carcassi's music, and it's going to come up in this piece quite a bit. So, okay, let's start talking about arpeggios. So, we have this concept now that the first two beats create a single chord essentially. And that's true in the right hand. We have these two patterns that end up making kind of a composite pattern. So we have P, I, M, I, then we have A, I, M, I. So first we need to understand P, I, M, I. Again, think follow through, think big knuckles. We're going to play the strings 4, 3, 2, 3. And what we're going to do for this is we're going to have thumb placed on the strings. Then I and M are going to, I is going to touch the third string and M is going to hover over the second string. We play I, and we play, as soon as M plays, I comes out to the third string. As soon as I play I, P would go back to the fourth string. So we'll do a couple of those. So it's P, I, M, I, P, I, M, I. Still think of the diving board. Depressing in, releasing. Displacing down. Okay, and then now we have our last bit of the pattern, which is going to be A, I, M, I. The strings we play for that are going to be the first string, the third, second, third. First, third, second, third. I like to do all these sequentially, so let me kind of just talk through that just a little bit. So A is going to play on the first string. It's going to bring M along, our M finger along for the ride. I is going to go on the string, on the third string. M is going to come out. A is probably going to go along for the ride a little bit. I play M, then I goes back out to the third string. A, I, M, I. Again, A plays, M comes along for the ride. I plays, M and A come out. M plays, I goes out, and then it kind of repeats, right? Okay, let's try that. Those two patterns with the metronome. So we have P, actually no left hand, okay? P, I, M, I, A, I, M, I, P, I, M, I, sit with that for as long as you need to. You never want to feel like you're struggling at the guitar. But assuming everything's good, what we'll do now is we'll try to play the first 6 beats of this piece, shall we? Okay. Ready? Each note or each note's going to get a click. 1, 2, 3, 4. I would sit with metronome and play that maybe 4 or 5 times, try to get a couple perfect reps. Let's kind of finish this piece up for today, or kind of finish our work with the piece for the day, and just go over those last beats 3 and 4 of measure 2. So we played this as blocked chords. Now we're going to break these up. It's actually going to feel maybe a little bit slower. Okay. You can always pause me, repeat as many times as you need to. We'll conclude today's video with a run through of the first 2 measures. What I would suggest is at the end of this video, call it a day. And tomorrow, jump to this timestamp if you understand everything well enough. And perhaps on the 3rd day, you'll want to just do it all your own. If everything feels nice and stable, then jump to the next lesson. I know it feels like we're going very slow, but perhaps the most important thing here is you didn't have to struggle for this. We never want to create a psychology of struggle around our instrument. So thank you so much for spending your time with me, and here we go. One, 2, 3, 4. Thanks again, and see you on the next one.